Okay, guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to start our panda today, and I'm going to show you step by step for how to get started. So the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to create a new document. The first thing that I like to do is to check with my sizes, make sure that I always label my artwork. And I'm also going to change it to a 10-inch by 10-inch document. I am going to add 2 artboards because what I'm eventually going to do is change it into another animal. So before I do anything, I'm going to make sure that I have 2 artboards so I can do one on panda and another one will be something else. After that, I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Once it loads, I'm going to add in make sure my documents are all set up. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I have my layers panel open. If you can't find it, it's going to be under window and layers. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is start with my circle tool. So underneath the square is going to be the ellipse tool. And I'm going to click and drag where I want it placed. I'm going to then use my direct selection tool. My direct selection tool allows me to move the handlebars, allows me to click on these anchors and adjust them according to how I need. Okay. I'm also going to remove my stroke. By doing this, I hit the none, and this allows me to get rid of my outline. Okay. Next step is a gradient. A gradient is a blend of colors. So rather than it being a solid color, I'm going to click on my gradient tool. When I click on my gradient, it automatically comes up with a white to black. Up over on the corner, as you can see, is my gradient panel. I'm going to go ahead and drag it up here so I can use this later. What I need to do is change these settings. If you're never logged into Illustrator before, you're going to log in by clicking on here, and it's going to ask you to change your settings. So like right now, it only gives me black and white options. These are my settings that I can change to. I'm going to change it to CMYK for now. And then I'm going to choose my color, which is going to stay white for now because of the center of the head of the panda. I'm going to click on the black and do the same thing. Click on the settings so I can change it to CMYK. And then I'm going to choose like a light gray color. Okay. So I don't want it to be a linear gradient. I don't want it to go from left to right. I want it to be radial. So over in the gradient panel, I can click on radial. This is a blender, so I can move it over however I want to get the blend style that I'm looking for. Now that I have the head shape, now I'm going to start creating the ears. I'm also going to label this layer so I can keep track of all my stuff. With the black arrow selected, I'm going to go ahead and do Command C, Command F. I'm going to select and scale with my black arrow. Holding the shift key keeps it proportional, and I'm going to scale it to the size that I want, and I'm going to slightly rotate it to the side. Okay. The next thing that I need to do is I need to adjust this layer. So I'm going to move it underneath the other layer. So I can select this one here. Okay. So I have my head layer and I have my ear layer. Okay. So I'm going to adjust this gradient, and I'm going to click on the gradient window and change it to be a light gray to a black. You can also switch through into the eyedropper or your swatches, however it works for you. And I'm going to make this a little bit here. Okay. Now for the ear, I want the highlight to be up here. If my highlight's up towards the top, I'm going to use a linear gradient. Quick shortcut. I can click here because you see how my highlight is down here and my shadow's up there. I can click and rotate that and it'll fix it for me. I can also click on the edit gradient tool and I can click and drag the direction that I want it to go into. Okay. So I'm going to click on my ear again, Command C, Command F for paste in front. Then I'm going to hold Shift and Option to make it smaller towards the middle. Now I'm going to switch this highlight because the best way to give the illusion of depth is by switching it up. Okay, so now I have these two shapes And I'm going to go ahead and do Command Group. I'm going to group it together. Okay, so if you see over here, I have my sub layer of my group, okay, of my ear. And I'm going to duplicate. There's a couple ways that you can duplicate. You can do Command C, Command V, copy and paste, but notice it pastes it anywhere. I can also hold Option, and my keyboard turns into 2 arrows, which then I can drag over. Then when I'm holding down the mouse and holding down Option, I'm dragging it over. I'm going to right click and then tell it that I want it to transform and reflect. And it transforms vertically, so right to left, which is what I want. And then I can just slightly move it in where I need. Okay, so now my ears layers are great and the head shape is great. So I'm going to lock those 2 layers. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the eye. So I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to move it to the top and I'm going to label these ones eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift to create a perfect circle. Then I'm going to use my white arrow to adjust these individual points. I'm going to click on the anchors and I'm going to slightly adjust. Now, we don't want to do this twice, so I'm going to save myself some time and I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to do everything that I can to finish one eye at a time. With my circle tool, again, we're going to use a circle a lot, also known as the ellipse tool. Okay, so I have my ellipse tool. I'm going to create now the eyelid. This is the outside of the panda's eye, and now I'm going to actually create the eyelid. I'm going to go ahead and on the gradient panel, I'm going to change the direction of the gradient. I'm going to make sure that it's linear, and I'm going to go up and down so it goes a highlight to a shadow, just like that. You can be a little bit more advanced and you can add in another color. So like you could make your dark be in the middle. So it goes light, dark, light, like so. And that will give the illusion of some extra highlight and shadow. Okay. So just in case you didn't know, if you want to get rid of this gradient, you can always push down. And by holding down the mouse and going downwards, it gets rid of it, or you can hit the little trash can. All right, I'm going to do Command C, Command F, and I'm going to hold Shift and Option together to move it centered. So now I have my eyelid, and now I'm going to use the eyedropper. The eyedropper's over here. The shortcut is the letter I on the keyboard, and so now I have this shape for the eye. I'm going to do it again, Command C, Command F, copy and paste in front, and I'm going to then make the color of my eye of my panda. And I want this shape to be, a light blue to a dark blue. And I like the way that that looks. So I'm going to keep that. Command C, Command F, copy and paste in front. And I'm going to make the pupil of the inside of the eye. And I'm going to make that the same as the eye here. And then I'm going to make it radial instead of linear. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and do it again. Command C, Command F, and I'm going to copy and paste right in the front. And I'm going to make this just solid white. So on my fill color, I'm just going to click white. And this is going to be his little highlight in his eye. And then if I hold Option, I can now duplicate these in different sizes and move them around however you want. Okay. So now that I have one eye complete, and because my head layer is locked, I can just click and drag over all of this entire eye. So by clicking and dragging, Command G groups them together. And so now anytime that I click on one section of the eye, the whole eye is selected. So again, that is Selection, Command G for group. I'm going to go ahead and hold Option and duplicate it to the other side. If you hold Shift, it keeps it on a plane of a 45 degree or a straight 90 degree. So I'm going to hold Shift while I'm holding Option so I get the straight line across. Okay. And then I'm going to reflect. You can go to Object and Reflect, or you can right click and hit transform reflect. Once I do that, then I hit OK, and then I figure out the spacing of where I want those eyes to be. My next thing that I'm going to do is start with the nose. So now that I have my eyes, I'm going to lock those layers. I'm going to do a new layer, do nose. Notice that I'm keeping everything kind of organized that way. I'm going to go ahead and create on my nose a long oblong shape. Use eye on the eyedropper to copy, okay? And I'm going to stretch it to make it a little bit fit in, and this is part of its nose. It's gonna look a little silly at first, but what you're gonna do is we're gonna create this and move it underneath the eyes, okay? I'm gonna make this a linear gradient, and I'm going to change it with the edit from up to down, okay? So that's the start of the nose. The next thing I'm going to do is just create a random oval shape, and I'm going to make this one the same as this one below. By holding eyedropper, I'm selecting the color of this shape. And then I'm going to warp this nose. I want to warp it so it looks a little bit more curved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Effect at the very top. I'm going to go to Warp, and I'm going to go to Arc. And I want it to arc downwards. So I'm going to do that. Just a little bit of a bend, and then I'm going to hit OK. And I don't like how big my nose is, so I'm going to hold Shift and Option to make it a little bit smaller, just like so. The small little details make the biggest effect. So I like the way that my nose looks, so I'm good with that, and I'm going to lock it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new layer and do mouth. So with my mouth, it's going to be underneath my nose. So I'm going to do this on this layer. So I'm going to use a new tool, and that's called the Pathfinder. So first things first is I'm just going to create 2 circles. So I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to hold Shift to select both. So let me go through that again. Here's a circle, hold Option to drag, and I'm going to select both circles by holding Shift. Your Pathfinder window is through Window, Pathfinder. You can also find it in your Properties menu. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the sliver. I call this the cookie cutter. And I'm going to take the sliver right here by doing the minus front. So I'm going to minus the circle that's in front of it, and I'm going to be left over with the sliver just like that. So my cookie cutter cut out a sliver. And I'm going to move that down to the bottom. And again, Command C, Command F, as you guessed it, Command C, Command F is pasting it in front, and I'm going to reflect it by right-clicking and transforming. And then I hit OK, and I'm going to move that guy over. Okay, we're almost done. The next thing I'm going to do is create a circle, and I'm going to give our guy some pink cheeks. So I'm going to do one cheek first, and the first thing that I'm going to do is change the color. So I'm going to make this a like a light pink color, light pink. And I'm going to make this one white. And I'm going to make it radial, just like that. And now, like, if you notice, you have this white edge. Like, we don't like that. So there's a couple things that you can do. The first thing you could do is you could double click on the white bar over here, and you could hit the opacity for this one slider. And I could do 0. When I do 0, that means it becomes transparent, but you can still see a little bit, tiny bit of that area. So another thing that you could do is with your transparency window, you can also change the type. So multiply gets rid of all white in that background. So now I can put that right on top. So again, that was the transparency window. So I clicked on my shape, transparency, multiply. That gets rid of all that white outline. And then I'm going to duplicate to the other side. 2 more steps. So the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a background for my panda. So all I'm going to do is create another new layer, put it all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to stack it with a rectangle with a color that I might like. So let's see, with my gradient, I'm going to change this back to 100%. And I'm going to do a dark blue, and I kind of like the pink. If you want to do another thing, you could do a drop shadow. So I'm going to show you how to do that. first thing I'm going to do is group all of these layers together. So I had to unlock them. So I clicked on unlock. I'm going to select them all. You can also hold shift and click on all of them, but that would take forever. And then I'm going to do Command G. I'm going to group them all together. So when I do my drop shadow, I go to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow. And then I can play around with my blend on how I want to do that. If I want it to be soft, and I hit OK. And there it is. There is your panda using shapes, gradients, Pathfinder, and your transparency.